Welcome back here with a new video, and as you remember in our last video we have configured the iSCSI disk. So let me quickly open that document so that I can show you, and later we'll proceed further with our next step. So this is my website. I'll put this link in the description. You can just check out this document, and this is a document which I was referring to. If you have watched our previous videos, as you know that until here the configuration and everything has been done from scratch. You can just watch the previous SQL failover cluster videos. Okay, let me proceed further with this Windows failover cluster configuration. So this is the thing which we have to do. So if I open this particular document, as you can see, we have to install certain roles, and then we should do for all the three VMs, and this is the feature which you have to install, and then restart the cluster, and then we can create new cluster by adding all those three VMs, and then we have to validate the cluster, and then as you can see the nodes and disk will be present here. So as I told in our last video, we have configured this particular SQL drives. As you can see, now I have mapping, like all the mappings has been done, the label and this Q, K and L, the letter mapping. Okay, I have done for SQL FCI. It doesn't matter, you can minimize for time being. Now we have to install Windows failover cluster for all our three VMs. So as you know, in my scenario I have three VMs, but I'm not sure in your scenario what number of VMs you will be having. It could be 5, it could be 4, any number. Okay, more than 2 or more than 5, 6. Okay, in my scenario it is 3, so I have to install SQL failover cluster in all my three VMs. So I have to do that. I have to, let me go back to the first node. So I'll just focus on SQL A node primarily currently. Let me minimize that. Okay, so this is my SQL A node. So here I have to open server manager, and let's start with the procedure of installing Windows failover cluster. I will click add roles and features. Okay, hit next, then role based feature, then I'll hit next. Okay, sorry, this is the one, and this is exactly perfect, SQL AKTT. And under server roles you will not find that, so you have to hit next. And here if you scroll a bit down, you can see this. Sorry, it is here, so you have to check this and then add feature, and then we have to hit next and then install. Okay, so this is the first part for Windows failover cluster. Now let's install the same Windows failover role in our other VM. So currently it is SQL A. Let me quickly go back to my SQL B. So here, as I told, I will open server manager, add roles and feature, and then I will hit skip this page, next, role based feature based installation. So my IP is correct, so select a server. We have to hit next, and under this you can find failover clustering. This is the one. Then add, then hit next, and restart is not required. Generally we have to do the restart. If it is asking for restart, I will do that, but currently I'm just installing. So this is my second node, and this is my third node. Let me install here as well. Add roles and features, add feature, next, and install. Okay, so as you can see, I have installed failover cluster in all my three nodes. Let me check the first one whether the installation has been succeeded or not. Okay, so it is installing. Let me install in all the three VMs, and then I will get back to this video to start with our failover cluster configuration or validation. Okay, we are back, and as you can see that our installation of Windows failover in all the three VMs has been done. As you can see, now I will hit close. Let me go back to my SQL A VM. Okay, you can either do it from any one of the VMs. Okay, let me close for all these VMs because the installation has been done. Now you have to focus on one particular VM, either it could be any of the node. Okay, let me minimize this as well. So I'll just focus on my SQL A node, so that to avoid any sort of confusion, let me minimize this. And once this is done, what you have to do is you have to look for failover, or you can do from server manager as well. So if you type failover, as you can see, this is our failover cluster manager. Just hit open, and we'll create one new failover cluster. Okay, and this is the interface which we will be configuring throughout our videos. Okay, the upcoming videos. Okay, and you should pay attention to this a lot. So currently you can see I don't have any cluster, so I have to create one cluster first, and then I will show you how to configure the SQL failover cluster. Okay, so as I told, that SQL failover cluster is a part of Windows failover cluster as well. Like, it is a prerequisite, one of the prerequisites. Okay, so we'll hit create cluster on your right, or you can just right click and here create cluster. Okay, and once you do that, it will ask you for some basic configuration. We'll do one by one. So this is the interface. You should hit next and enter the server. So what you have to do is you have to mention all your servers which are going to be part of this failover cluster. In my lab scenario, I have three servers which are going to be part of my SQL failover cluster. Okay, so it will be SQL A. Let me hit add, and it is looking for SQL A, as you can see. Then it is SQL B. Let me add that as well. And then finally we have our SQL ABFCI. Okay, so these are the three machines which are going to be part of my Windows failover cluster and SQL failover cluster. I will hit next and leave this as default. Don't go with the second option. You have to do the mandatory validation, to check the reports and everything. We'll hit next. And once this is done, you have to click do not show this page, or if you want to, you can just leave it, ignore that. And this is the testing option. So either you can go with run only test I selected, but since this is new failover cluster, so it is recommended to go with run all test. In future, suppose if you have added new disk, then what you can do, new any sort of new additional feature which you have added in the failover cluster, then you can run the standalone test, like you can select the test in upcoming steps. But in my case, I will just go with run all test as it is a recommended. I'll hit next, and as you can see, it will go through all the tests whether this particular machines are ready for configuration of SQL Server failover cluster or not. So currently we are doing Windows failover cluster. Okay, don't probably I'm telling both the things at a time, so probably you will get confused. But first we have to create Windows failover cluster thing, and then we can go with SQL. So as I told, to create SQL failover, we should have Windows failover. These are the machines. It is going to run some prerequisite tests to check whether we can configure Windows SQL failover cluster on this or not. Okay, let me hit next, and it is the validation is going to take a bit time, and it will generate a big report, and it will give it to you. You can just open that for any sort of error or problem. You can check that, and you can fix that first, and then you can install the failover cluster. Okay, let me complete this test, and we'll get back to the video again. The validation has been successful. Let's check, click the report and check whether we have any sort of problem or not. So by seeing this, we can see a couple of warnings, so that we can ignore for time being. It is not going to impact our cluster. Okay, and also let us make sure that we don't have any other problem by opening the report. Okay, so system configuration, network storage and inventory, it is perfect. And here the main thing which you have to look is here under inventory, and as you can see, everything is result, everything is succeeded, there is no error. And if you want to check furthermore, you can scroll down for any sort of error. Currently I don't have any error. And as you can see, the disk which we have created, all the 4 disk is also validated here. So this will automatically, the Windows Server failover will automatically validate the cluster and disk and everything. So I don't think so there is sort of problem here. So I'll just close this or minimize. So this part is done, and we'll hit finish. And now we have to give a cluster name. Okay, so that we can connect to this cluster and identify to to this cluster from anywhere in the network. We can also connect from other VMs as well once we create a cluster here. Just put it this way, win SQL FCI, and I'll hit next, and probably it is going to ask me for IP, or by default it has taken one of the IP from my DHCP server itself. Or also what you can do is you can scroll down and you can edit this DHCP address as well if you don't want to use that. But in my case, I'll just leave it default. So my cluster IP will be 192.168.10.0, and it will assign within a minute once we configure the cluster. And it will also add a DNS record in my domain controller. Okay, make sure that you have checked this particular option, add all eligible storage to the cluster. Okay, and once this is done, what it will do is whatever storage we created, it will just directly add to the cluster. So I will hit next, and it is configuring the SQL failover cluster. Let's see how long does it going to take, and then we can see all those nodes, disk, and everything in our failover cluster configuration manager. Okay, as you can see, the cluster configuration has been done. We'll click view report if you want to see the report again, and this will have all the details about clustering and everything. So this part is done. We'll hit finish, and let me expand this so that I can explain you clearly about this cluster environment. So this is the interface. If I expand this, okay, so ktt.yt.lab, so fqdn. So it already registered a DNS record in my domain controller. And if you go under roles, you can see we don't have anything. So when we install SQL, we'll talk about these roles. And in the nodes, we have three nodes, SQLB, SQLAB, and FCI. So as I told that all these three nodes are going to be part of my SQL failover cluster. And the IPs you can see here, which is part of same subnet. Okay, this part is done. Let me go back to the storage, and if you see under storage, we have 4 disk already configured here. You remember that this 4 disk was active in one of our SQL, as you can see in this one. If I go here, but it is not present in all of our SQL. Okay, so once we make this part of this Windows failover cluster, it will be visible here. So what it does is whenever something happened to one of the node, it will switch back to the other nodes. So currently, if you see here, all the owner node is SQL A, SQL A, SQL A, SQL A. If I open my file explorer and this PC, you will see this K, Q, and L and T. All this disk will be there. Okay. Now, if I open the other VMs, it will not be there, like SQL B and SQL FCI. And that is the beauty of this Windows failover cluster, because we are going to configure SQL disk here. Okay, and coming to first part, what you have to do is we have to configure the quorum disk. Okay, so as you can see, disk witness in quorum. So this is disk witness. So you remember we have created a 5 GB quorum disk, and it automatically took that 5 GB as a quorum disk. Now suppose if it did not take this as a quorum disk, okay, then what you have to do is you can manually assign the disk which you want as a quorum disk. Okay, so what you have to do is on your Windows SQL FCI ktt.delab, you have to right click and more actions. Under this you will find configure quorum disk settings, and once you hit that, you can move to any one of your node. Okay, so as you can see, select the quorum witness, you can hit next, and it will pop you with all the configured this. Okay, as you can see, and you can just make the changes here which you want to allocate for quorum. But in my scenario, as I told already, it is pointing to the correct disk. This is our data disk, this is our temp disk, and this is our cluster disk. Let me rename all this quorum disk. So first disk is our data disk, so this is our data disk. Then the second, this is the quorum disk, so I'll mention this as quorum. This is our quorum disk. Hit OK. So 2 disk has been renamed, and our third disk was for our temp logs. If you click on this, you will find this. Currently, you can see here temp disk, so I can just rename as per this as well. So as you can see, we have done all the configuration here. So this is our disk which is going to be used for our SQL failover cluster. And once this is done, what you have to do is we have to install SQL. But before that, there is 2 things which we have to do. First, we have to create a service account for our SQL. Without service account, you can't configure the failover cluster. So that is a mandatory steps that we'll see in our next video. But in this video, as I told that whenever you are trying to install a SQL failover cluster, right? So we should be having one particular data disk available on this machine. Okay, so what it does is, what I'm trying to say is, suppose if disk is not here and I open the SQL server installation and this disk is not present here, it is in SQL FCI cluster. I mean to say it is in my other VM. So what will happen is, so whenever I try to install, I can't find this particular location. Okay, so we should make sure that whenever we are trying to install our SQL cluster, which is our first node, I mean to say, suppose you have tried to install SQL on the first node. In my case, it is SQL A, and all these 4 disks, out of 4 disks, 3 is important one, and all these 3 disks should be pointing to SQL A. Otherwise, we can't install the SQL if the owner node for all these disks are other nodes. I mean to say SQL B or SQL FCI in my scenario. So whenever you are trying to install SQL for the first time, the first node when you are trying to install failover cluster, we'll talk about that in upcoming videos. But please understand that whenever we are trying to install SQL failover cluster, the active disk should be present here. Okay, that is the first thing. Now suppose if you don't want to do this, so there is another step which we can do. What we can do is we can create a shared drive for all these 3 disks. So what we'll do is it will be active for read and write in all our 3 machines. So in my scenario, it is SQL A, SQL B, and SQL FCI. As I told that at a time we can access this particular disk in one particular machine itself. Okay, we can't access all the three disks at a time in all the machines. That is the reason we have another option which is called shared disk. And if you go to my document, this is the one which I was talking about. If I scroll down a bit, I'll show you that as well. Keep scrolling, and as you can see here, clustered shared volume file system, which is called, and you can check out this Microsoft document for more understanding what it does and how this works. Okay, this is very much in here. So what I will suggest is you can just configure the cluster disk if you are not are doing for production environment. Okay, I will highly recommend you to check this particular document so that you will get an idea how this SQL failover shared volume will work. Okay, let me go back to my Windows, the document, and as you can see, to install SQL, we need active drives. Okay, so we have to do the following: shared volume system for all active read and write operation on the all the nodes. I mean to say on all the nodes. So there is no additional step. What you have to do is you have to right click on all the disk. So you have to just right click and you have to change from available disk to clustered shared volume. I'll show you that. Let me go back to my SQL A node, and as you can see, currently you can see it is available storage. So I will make it available in all our nodes. So what will it does is it will create a share file kind of thing. As you can see, this one, this is just an example. So what I'm trying to say is this particular network file path I can access from anywhere. The same way, the similar way, even all our this data disk will work. Okay, so that is the reason we are going to configure. The worst part about this thing is when you are trying to configure a SSAS cluster, the SSAS cluster, it cannot be installed on this clustered shared volume. Okay, you should make this point. Okay, because in future we are going to install SSAS as well. That is the reason I'm trying to explain. So whenever the SSAS doesn't function similar to SQL, as I told, SQL can be installed on either shared volume, clustered shared volume, or it can be also installed on this available storage. We can just move all the disk to one particular machine and we can just install, even that will work fine. But SSAS doesn't work like that. Okay, so for SSAS it is mandatory to have a available storage disk. This is the first thing. Second thing, now suppose if you are trying to install SQL failover cluster, we can create multiple folders and we can install multiple instance of SQL failover cluster in the same disk. But that will not happen with SSAS failover cluster. Once you install SSAS failover cluster on an available storage, the next time you can't make use of the same available storage to install another SSAS cluster. Okay, so make this point. I am thinking that it is a bit confusion, but currently we'll focus on SQL. So as I told, we have to create a shared disk so that it should be available in all our three nodes. And let me open my file explorer, and if I take you to C drive, my C drive, you can see your cluster storage is there. Okay, currently this is empty. Okay, so what I will do is I will just make this as part of as I told, shared disk. So what you have to do, either you can right click and you have that option, add to cluster shared volume, or you can do it one by one from here as well. So what I'll do is here, right on the right, you can see add to cluster shared volume. I'll just click on this and I will hit add to custom cluster shared volume. Once this is done, it will automatically configure that thing for you, which I explained earlier, everything. And I think so this is done. Available storage, then I have to do for this, which is our log drive. Quorum drive, you can leave it as it is. It is not required to do it for quorum drive. You can't even do that. If I click here, as you can see, it is there is no option, so you can ignore that because we are not going to make use of that quorum disk anymore in our SQL installation or data disk or log disk. You can say anything. Okay, this is just for configuration of Windows failover cluster. And the last is temporary disk, and let me make this as well as a part of add to cluster shared volume. So as you can see, now all these three disks are there, and it will be accessible throughout all the VMs. Like currently I have done for SQL A, but as I told, it is part of SQL failover cluster, so it will be accessible from SQL B, SQL C, everywhere. Let me show you that. As you can see, earlier this was empty. Now if I open, as you can see, it has volume 1, volume 2, and volume 3. And if I try to open this, you can see it is empty. Now what I can do is I can install the same SQL failover cluster in all this machine. So we'll talk about that later. So this is the first thing you have to do. Let me access the same volume there as well. let me do one thing. Let me switch back to my sqlb, and if I open File Explorer, let me go back to this PC, and under this PC, if I open, you can see the same folder is present here, and under this I have the same volume. Okay, so it is accessible across the VMs which are going to be part of SQL Failover cluster. Okay, that is the reason we have to configure active read and write on this disk, so that we don't need to move manually from one machine to another machine. No matter where you configure, it will be accessible throughout the machines. Okay, I think so you understand until here, and as I told, SSAS will talk about that. If you are getting confused, currently focus on this SQL. Okay, as I told, we can install both ways. Either you can go with drive, or if you want to go with custom shared disk, even that will work fine for SQL, but not for SSAS. I hope you got the idea. Let me know if you have any suggestions or comments in the article. I hope you like this video, and as I told, you can watch our previous cluster series and also upcoming cluster series. Please subscribe to my channel and hit that bell icon to get the latest notification. Also, you can visit my site, as I told, to configure the SQL failover cluster, which I have guided step by step from beginning to end of SQL failover cluster. I hope you got this video, and we'll see you in next upcoming videos in our SQL failover cluster series.